Okay, everybody, welcome back from winter break here. Today we're just going to use an Edpuzzle video to discuss the causes of World War II, all the stuff we did related to that prior to vacation. So you're going to want to do a couple things here. Let me give you some directions. Okay, so your directions while doing this are pretty simple. While you're watching the video, I want you to take notes on this. And I've attached the graphic organizer to Google Classroom that you can use. I suggest if you can that you print it. Or you could simply make one on regular paper, like the one I'm gonna try to show you here when we get done, but I'm not positive if that will work. But basically what I just did was I created on a piece of regular loose leaf paper a 3-column chart. At the top of one column I wrote event. The next one I put effects of the event, and then on the other side, the third column, I wrote how the event caused World War II. And you can simply look at the one on Google Classroom. It's set up the exact same way if you want to do it on paper. The beauty of paper is if you don't have a printer, and it works, and you can bring it to school with you and everything else. And then just each of the events that I go through, you're gonna put the information in the corresponding column. Okay, when you're done with that, you're going to answer a question for each one on Edpuzzle, each of the things, and it'll be a pretty straightforward question. It'll be, how did this event cause World War II or lead to World War II? Okay, so let's get going on the videos. Okay, so the first cause of World War II is the Treaty of Versailles, and it's probably the most important one. Some effects of the Treaty of Versailles, if you can remember back to your treaty, that this is again the treaty that ends World War I. Okay, Germany loses a lot of land. They have to take the blame for starting World War I. They have to pay billions of dollars in reparations to the Allies, and they have to reduce the size of their military to under 100,000 soldiers. So how does this lead to World War II? German national pride is hurt. A lot of Germans are angry. They want revenge. They want their land back. Their economy is wrecked by the reparations and later the Great Depression. And there's this begins to generate this belief that the army and really the German people as a whole were stabbed in the back by communists and especially Jews. And this is propagated by right-wing extremists, including and probably most importantly Adolf Hitler. Okay, and just again to kind of give you the reminder on the land that Germany lost. The map on the left, this is Germany before World War I. This is 1914 Europe. You can see the other map on the right-hand side is 1929 to 1939 Europe. If you look closely, you can see Germany, and that's the blue country here in the center of the map. Okay, much smaller. They've lost a lot of territory, especially this piece of land here. Okay, and part of their territory they're not allowed to have their army in. We'll get to that a little later. Okay, so Germany, you could hopefully visualize some of the reasons why the German people are not super happy. Okay, pause the video, fill in your graphic organizer, then restart it and answer the question. Okay, moving forward. So the Russian Revolution is your next cause, and it's kind of peripheral cause. This isn't a main cause, but it does lead to a few things. Okay, you have a communist government installed in the Soviet Union beginning in the fall of 1917. Okay, installed by Lenin. 1924, Stalin takes power. You remember that Stalin installed the 5-year plans. The Holodomor, the killing of all the starvation and killing of the people in the Ukraine, the famine that we talked about in class and in the videos. And then later in the 1930s, Stalin embarks on what become known as the purges, where he basically kills off anybody who's a rival. And this is especially important a little bit down the road when we get into the last thing on my list here. These purges are targeted especially at the Soviet military. 1939, The Nazis and the Soviets sign what is called a non-aggression pact. They don't really become allies, but they do agree to not go to war, and there's a secret deal within that non-aggression pact that, again, we'll discuss a little later this week. So, how does this reincarnation of Russia as the USSR cause World War II? Well, a couple things. Communism is seen as a threat by the West, especially by the capitalists, okay, the people who could lose something, because remember, communism is going to eliminate all private property, okay. This will lead to the rise of fascism and Nazism, these two right-wing, kind of high nationalist, very conservative agendas that become kind of a counterbalance against the communists in all the countries of Europe. And then the Nazi-Soviet pact, when the Russians and the Germans agree not to go to war against each other in 1939, this removes any kind of threat of war between Russia and Germany. And again, we'll get into that in some more detail later. Okay, pause the video. Again, fill in your graphic organizer, then restart and answer the question. Okay, next up, nationalism and the rise of totalitarian dictatorship. This kind of goes hand in hand with the rise of Stalin and everything. So it comes out of a growth in national pride that is fully massaged or pushed or built on by the dictators that will come to power. Dictatorships take power in Italy, the USSR, Russia, Germany, and Japan, and also in some of the other countries of Europe, some of the smaller, less powerful countries. Really, only France and England do not become dictatorships, along with Czechoslovakia. And it leads to a rise in militarism, okay, the glorification of the military. How does this cause World War II? The rise of Hitler and this idea of the stab in the back, playing on the German desire for revenge. Mussolini in Italy, Stalin in the Soviet Union, militarists in Japan. You have totalitarian governments in these four countries, and some others, but most significantly these four countries, which will lead to a military buildup in all four countries, but it's most significantly in Germany and Japan. Once again, pause the video, fill in your graphic organizer, then restart and answer the question. Okay, the next one up is American isolationism. Okay, and this one again is not super major cause, but it is a contributing factor. Okay, after World War I, U.S. withdraws from world affairs. They don't join the League of Nations, even though it was the idea of President Wilson. And the U.S. significantly disarms during this time period from 1919 to 1939, 1940. Okay, how does this cause World War II? Well, simply when war comes in 1939, the U.S. is not ready. We have a very small army. It's really a border defense army. We don't have tanks. We don't have anything. Okay, so therefore we're not there in the 1930s when Hitler is coming to power to maybe be someone that would also object to some of the things he is doing. We also don't intervene very much with the Japanese expansionism in Asia, especially their moves in Korea, Manchuria, and later in China. Not really until we're getting into the 1930s, 39, 40, 41 period do we actually start saying, whoa, wait a minute, Japan. And the U.S., especially by Japan, but also by the Germans, is seen as weak and not really a threat. Okay, now we get into, so now you're going to pause again, fill in your graphic organizer, and you're going to have another question to answer. Okay. Now we're getting into some of the really more short-term, the real hardcore things along with the Treaty of Versailles. Okay, you have Japanese militarism and expansionism. We've talked about this in class. Japan, the effects kind of / causes of Japanese militarism and expansionism is Japan needs natural resources for its industry and for its military. China is weakened by its civil war, and they have those resources in territory they're controlled. And Japan is engaged in a military buildup because the militarists in Japanese government is really who's in power. So how does this cause World War II? Well, The Japanese decide to invade Manchuria first in 1931, and then they invade China in 1937, which leads to the Nanking Massacre that we talked about in class, and will eventually, in December 1941, lead to the attack on Pearl Harbor, and also the Japanese attempt to take over most of East Asia. And again, we'll get into that in some more detail down the road. All right, pause once again, fill in your graphic organizer, then restart, answer the question. Okay, as far as Europe goes, this is the big boy as far as the causes, along with the Treaty of Versailles, and it really grows right out of the Treaty of Versailles. This is German nationalism, militarism, and expansion. Okay, the effects: desire for land return from the Treaty of Versailles. Okay, they want their land back that they lost, okay, or that was demilitarized. Still have this lingering anger over the treaty that Hitler has allowed to fester and really built up. You have the military buildup in response to when the Nazis come to power. You have these nationalistic political parties come to power in Germany, led by the Nazis, and all of these efforts at militarism and expansionism increase tension in Europe. Okay, how does this cause World War II? Well, it's kind of a series of events. We talked about all of these in class other than the last one. Hitler comes to power, okay, with his whole nationalist message, getting revenge, getting rid of the Treaty of Versailles, blaming everything on the Jews. So the first thing Hitler does in 1936, he reoccupies the Rhineland, which is the borderland between the Rhine River and France. Okay, then the Anschluss, the joining with Austria that we talked about in class the week before vacation, and then finally Czechoslovakia, okay, the Sudetenland and the appeasement, which we'll get to in the right in the next set of slides, okay, taking over the Sudetenland, and then finally, after he accomplishes his stuff in the Sudetenland that we've talked about, he will then turn his eyes towards Poland, and we will get into Poland next, probably a day or two from now. Okay, so again, pause the video, fill in your organizer, answer the question. Okay, lastly, of the stuff we've done to this point is appeasement. Okay, the effects of this, kind of the causes of this: British and France want to avoid war at all costs. This is a major reason why the policy of appeasement develops. Remember that. Hitler got territory out of this. The most significant phase of appeasement was Czechoslovakia, but when he did the Rhineland, when he did Austria, the Allies, France and Britain, did nothing to say, hey, wait a minute. Okay, so how does this cause World War II? Hitler is emboldened by his success with the Rhineland, with Austria, with Czechoslovakia. His popularity grows in Germany because he's doing what he said he would do. The British and French look weak because they look like they'll just let him do whatever he wants. In the spring of 1939, Hitler originally just wanted the border regions of Czechoslovakia. In the spring, he takes all of it. And then later in the summer of 1939, he turns his attention to Poland, that we're going to talk about in a day or two. Okay, so just kind of a reminder on the map of what territories we're talking about. And those of you who have Versailles, you should be able to read this map. But for those of us who don't take Germany, you can just see, and this is kind of a wide angle map because I made it as big as I could. All right, so here is Germany post Treaty of Versailles. That's kind of this mustard brown color, and this is East Prussia and the rest of Germany. Okay, so our first thing was when he militarized the Rhineland. Okay, that's his first effort. Then we have Austria down here in this kind of stripy color, okay, that he joins with through the plebiscite and the vote that we looked at. And then comes the Sudetenland. This is this kind of purplish mustardy color stripes. Okay, this is the territory that he wants. It's majority German. Once he seizes that, then they just drive the tanks through and crush the rest of it. Slovakia is kind of left as a rump, what they call a rump state. That will later be added when he invades Poland and all that. So the next kind of order of business for Hitler, as we'll see, is he starts worrying about the city of Danzig, and this territory, which was prior to World War I, was all German. So that's a very heavily German population, and we're going to see how Hitler generates a cause to invade Poland. All right, so the last time filling in your graphic organizer, then restart the video and answer the question. And then there's one last little slide to let you know what's coming later in the week. Okay, so over the next couple of days, we're going to talk about the Nazi racial policies towards the Jews and see what they were doing on that front, because while it's not a major cause of the war, it will play a major role in the way the war is prosecuted and also in the Holocaust. And then we're going to talk about the Nazi-Soviet Pact and the invasion of Poland, and that will get us to the beginning of the war. So make sure you've got that graphic organizer filled in, and work your way down the sheet. You rewind the video if you need to.